guys! Today we are going to be talking about a video game for once. I know, you're shocked, not anime. Today we're going to talk about The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel. It is kind of a newer release. It came out near the end of last month. And it is only available for PS3 and PS Vita, which is a little interesting since it is kind of a newer release. And they didn't bring it out for PS4, but I still have a PS3, so I'm not complaining. It is something that you can get. I believe it's about $40, and for $10 more you can get the Lionheart edition, which is kind of just more of the special edition, and you get a couple extra little perks here and there. I did choose to get that since it was only about $10 more. It comes with a packaged case, so when the second one comes out, you can fit the first one as well as the second one in here. The second one comes out sometime this year. They haven't announced an actual date for that yet, but there will be room in here for this one. And they did announce a third game in this series, but we have no idea when that's coming out either. It does come up with an art book that is over 300 pages, which does go through kind of character concepts and colors and everything. Some nice interesting little art pieces in here. And it comes with a little pin as well. So that is something that, if you are kind of more on the collector's side, that is something that might kind of be useful to you, especially if you do plan on getting the second one. That way you can kind of have them both in the same case. Just to kind of briefly talk about the story, you end up being one character as like the main protagonist, which his name is Rain. They were in the works of talking about doing it as a duel where you can choose to be Rain, the main male protagonist, or Alyssa, who's the main female protagonist. So it was in the works to be one or the other, and then you had different stories, but they ended up deciding to just go with the Rain story, I guess, and it still works out, I think, but I think having that option sometimes is something that is a pull to some people. But in this case, I don't think it really held back the story whatsoever. And the story itself is Rain and his fellow students are just starting at Thor's military academy, and they are the newly, I guess, initiated Class 7, which is the only class in the entire school, or I believe the only class in the entire country, that mixes nobles as well as commoners. And in this world, kind of your bloodline is really a big important part of how your life leads. So for them to actually mix it up is kind of interesting to see. You do have some concepts in there of people from rich families, how they act, as opposed to people from poor families, and seeing them interact is kind of interesting as well. So the most of the gameplay is involving like your school year, kind of going through, getting more skills, helping out people in the nearby areas. You do quite a bit of traveling as well, I've noticed, and you get to explore the areas as well as you kind of have the characters develop a little bit more in their life, and they do grow up a little bit, as well as kind of get used to each other and experience those different classes in the money-wise and the family classes, and they get to really realize that just because someone's rich doesn't make them better, just because someone's poor doesn't make them worse, and they kind of have to blend that a little bit, I think, and they do a really good job in that. The gameplay itself is really interesting. It is a turn-based for when you're actually in fights, which is kind of more on the rare side now, I think. It was a lot bigger when I first started playing games in the 90s, but I feel like more it is, especially the newer Final Fantasy games, is very immediate. You have to respond immediately in order for stuff to get done, where this time is very casual. The turn-based style is very, you kind of fight at your own pace, which I think is kind of, in my opinion, a pleasant surprise, whereas a lot of them nowadays, it's just kind of stressful sometimes. But I think it is good that they do have that slower pace in this. In the harder levels, or I should say the harder difficulties, the time does kind of decrease a little bit, so you do need to kind of make those decisions a little bit faster, but it is still very much turn-based. You can definitely take some time and think about your strategy and how you want people to line up, and the most effective way to have your battles go down. You really have to strategize about it, I think, especially with what moves you're going and how you're going to line up to do duo moves with people and that sort of thing. I think is really good. There is one thing that I do want to mention. The artwork and the quality of everything is obviously very high quality. The gameplay itself, I feel like, is a few years dated. It's not as streamlined as I've noticed for a lot of like the newer MMOs, the computer generated games, like the new Final Fantasy 15 that's coming out. I feel like those are a little bit more on the like high def visual graphics out of this world phrase, where I think with the Trails of Cold Steel game, the graphics, they're not terrible. I'm not saying it's anything like that where it's really entirely pixelated or anything. I just feel like it's not really as high quality as most people would assume it would be at this day and age. But it's definitely something that didn't really bother me personally. But it might be something that you do look forward to when you do pick out a new game. You want to see how outstanding the graphics are, which is definitely okay. And like I said, the graphics and a lot of the special moves and everything, they're really great. But a lot of the actual normal gameplay, day-to-day stuff, there is a little bit to be desired, but I don't think it really takes away from the game whatsoever. This is a game that it did come out, I want to say near the end of last year. It is something that they did release in Japan about 2013, but this is for the American release, so it is a couple years later. One thing that I did notice though that I don't know if it really bothered me more as I was kind of hoping for more, but with this game, English is kind of the only option there for the voiceovers, which some people that probably won't really bother, but I kind of tend to more appreciate if there is like an English and Japanese voiceover option. That way you can kind of see the different aspects of it and kind of hear how it was originally intended. But I think for the American release, they just kind of went with English and just kind of stuck with it. I personally, I think some of the voice acting is really good, and I can definitely appreciate that. I feel like I ended up turning off the voice acting though, about maybe the first day or so in. It just was something that was more distracting than anything. Some of it was a little bit on the cringeworthy side, but once you took the voice off, it was perfectly fine, and it actually brought into that more, I guess, aged experience that I've come to love from RPGs when I was growing up. So it was something that, in that sense, turning off the voiceover, it was fine for me. It actually added to the experience, where some people actually do enjoy the voiceover and the voice actors for the English version. That's just not something that, in my opinion, that I did enjoy, but it's something that you could probably enjoy if you wanted. I didn't really think that it took away from the story much turning it off though, personally. But it is something that I did like, and I am looking forward to the second one coming out. The ending for this one was kind of on the cliffhanger side. I'm not going to give it away, but it is something that you're kind of just like, oh, yeah, I went through this whole game and it didn't really end exactly, so now I have to anxiously await the second one. Why did I get it right when it first came out then? So, but it is something that I think a lot of people would enjoy. It's kind of a different RPG, and I kind of want to mention, I am saying Trails of Cold Steel. This is not a Tales of series. It is not anything affiliated with that. There are Legend of Hero games that it is tied to in that aspect, but it is not at all tied to any of the Tales of series. It's not Tales of Xillia or Tales of Symphonia, anything like that. So, just so you know, it is definitely Trails of Cold Steel. So, don't make that mistake. But that's my first video game review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know what you think in the comments. Is this something that you want to see again? Is that something that you'd be excited to see or excited to play in this case? And I hope you enjoyed it. We'll try to get it done next time. Thank you.